I titled this, Things Are Not Falling Apart, They're Falling into Place According to God's Plan. God always prepares a way. We just have to listen and watch it play out. In Deuteronomy 1:30, it says, the Lord your God who goes before you will himself fight on your behalf. As most of you know, I have bladder cancer. I've had 28 surgeries. I've had 5 procedures done. I've had 2 rounds of chemo and started a third one. And I've lost 3 major organs through all of this. I've lost a kidney, I've lost my gallbladder, and I had to have a hysterectomy due to either the treatment or the cancer itself. I'm not a singer, I'm not a speech person, but I'm going to do a little bit of both. Music is my comfort. When I was sick and George spent many hours working and I had to be at home alone, I listened a lot to KWFC. I'm a Southern gospel junkie. One of the songs that played every time I turned the radio on seemed like it was playing, and it was just a song that gave me a lot of comfort. I'm not going to play that one. I'm going to just read the words to this one because we don't have a lot of time. But it's over and over. I stood on the bank of the wide raging river, trusting that I'd get across. I'd made my way through some valleys and deserts, believing I'd never get lost. I'd been at the foot of what they felt like Mount Everest, knowing I'd have the strength to climb. Through every trial, each test and temptation, one thing is sure every time. Over and over, again and again, God is faithful. Over and over, again and again, through it all, he made me able to stand and survive, to come through alive when it sure looked like I couldn't win. Jesus was with me, so I claimed the victory over and over again. The second verse is, if you ask me why, I have no hesitation. God does what he says he will do. But I'll simply say every battle has taught me there's nothing he won't help me do. Why should I dwell on the hardships and struggles when I look just beyond them? I see the way this will end is a great celebration, and deep in my heart, I believe. So that's just one song that just really touched my heart as I was going through a lot of stuff. I started out, George and I was actually canning apples, and I went to the bathroom, and when I got in there, my urine was nothing but blood. So I told him, I said, I think I have a bladder infection. And I said, this is Friday. There's no doctors until Monday, and I probably won't get in for 2 or 3 days. We better go to urgent care. So we took off, and we went to urgent care. When I got there, the lady said, oh, this is female trouble. So she sent me to a gynecologist. We were at the gynecologist for probably a year and a half. And I think he thought I was a hypochondriac because he wouldn't really listen to me. He couldn't find anything wrong, but he never really gave me any advice on what to do different. So about every 6 weeks or a month, the blood would all come back again. So I called one day and I told his nurse, I said, here's the deal. I said, I'm passing things that look like flesh. And she says, Connie, get a primary doctor. Don't tell the doctor I told you this. Here's a number. I trust these doctors. Get a primary doctor. So the next week, I had an appointment with a primary doctor, and she said the first thing we're going to do is a CT scan. So we did all of that, and I went to one of the women retreats, come back, real good mood, uplifted, and my phone rings. And it's my doctor, and she says, I hate to tell you this, being a brand new patient, and especially over the phone, she said, your bladder is plumb full of tumors. She said one of them is half the size of your bladder, and you have 6 more, and what you're passing is the tumors that were actually breaking loose in the bladder and coming through. So, knowing that, I had had cancer a long time before we even discovered I had it. Like I said, the gynecologist got frustrated with me because I kept calling, and he finally did a DNC and said, I don't understand it, there's nothing. So anyway, this doctor sent me on to a urologist, and the urologist, he said, yes, it's cancer, and he said it's got to come out. So my 20-minute surgery wound up, I think, 1 hour and 25 or something like that the first time because he had a terrible time getting them out of there. When I went back for my post-op, what he said to me he said, Connie, do you believe in God? And I said, yes, sir, I do. And he said, I'm glad, because I didn't think you had a chance to make it. He said most people who's had cancer for that long, the roots have already gone through the bladder into the stomach. And he said, you should have been dead. So he said, this is a God thing. And he said, you should be very grateful. And I said, no, that's just the blessings God gives us, and he's just not done with me yet. And so we went on. Now, bladder cancer, I wasn't even a candidate for it. You're supposed to be over 60. You're supposed to have been a heavy cigarette smoker or worked in chemicals. I had never done any of those. In my research of bladder cancer, I did find out, which was kind of shocking, well, not this part, but secondhand smoke can also be a problem. And here's the real clincher. Back when Equal came out, I loved Southern tea. I switched sugar for Equal. And now they're saying that a lot of your artificial sweeteners are the ones that are causing a lot of the cancer now that's going through. So whether it was that or not, we don't know. I was told there is no cure for bladder cancer, that they can pretty well control it, but there is no cure. But every time you have a surgery, you always have this hope that this is the end, this is the end, this is the end. But it hasn't been that way. When you're first told you have cancer, you kind of go through some stages. First of all, you just go blank when you hear the word cancer, and you just really don't know what to think. Then you go into denying the severity of it. This won't be so bad. We'll get through this. And then you go through the why me? What did I do? I went to church. I took my kids to church. Why did this happen to me? And then you get a little bit angry and a little bit mad. And then all of a sudden you decide, okay, we got a problem. We're going to figure this out, and we're going to deal with it. And then you get in fight mode, and it's like, people, I ain't giving up. So you just keep on going. I tell people all the time, this cancer's not going to kill me. I may get run over by a truck on the way home, but this cancer's not going to kill me. I think telling my family was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. My dad was really sick. He wasn't supposed to be upset. So it was really hard to tell your family. So you learn to turn off the tears, and you learn to be brave. And I tell everybody, you fake it till you make it, and everybody knows. So it's tough. It is tough. I adopted the verse Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. When you're going through things you've never been through before, it's traumatic. I mean, you're laying in those machines, and there's noise, and there's all kinds of things going on. And probably the scaredest I ever was is when they put my PICC line in. They told me that they were going to do surgery. I said, I drove myself. I'm going shopping with a girlfriend. We're going out to eat. She said, oh, honey, don't worry about it. We're just going to give you a shot, and they're going to run a wire all the way up to your heart. You're going to what? And you don't tell me that ain't. You know, walking into the Halston Cancer Institute, I mean, that was like, oh my goodness. You walk into this room, and it's not rooms, it's cubicles. And you see everybody in there in every stage of cancer there is, and you wonder which one is you coming up, you know. And so it's very traumatic to walk in there and have to look at all those people and see that. You know, a lot of my surgeries, I was alone because of COVID. So George and my sister wound up having to sit in the car at Columbia or in wherever. And, you know, so a lot of this stuff I actually had to go through alone. I was lucky that COVID was kind of on the end whenever my kidney was taken out. So they did let George in, but they wouldn't let anybody else in. And it's a good thing because he took care of me, because all the nurses had COVID. And there was only one nurse on the entire floor for 28 people, I think it was. So, you know, when you're laying in that machine, I about wore out Philippians 4:13 on some of those things, because it just terrifies you when you're sitting there and that's your peace. George and I also found a lot of ways for humor, because when you're going through all of this, you just can't be down all the time. You've got to find a way to laugh. So I'll give you some personal information here. They put a tube in my back to do one of my chemos into my kidney. And while they were doing that, my heart rate fell, and the doctor says, I don't know what's wrong. I said, I do. My oxygen's laying in the floor. It had fallen off. And actually, the tube they put in, I could actually pee out my back. So now you know someone who can really do weird things. They took it out, so no more. The other thing we kind of laugh about sometimes is, one Sunday I was really sick, and I still had my catheter, and I wanted to come to church. And so I put on a black skirt and a black slip, and I was walking, and the wind was blowing. Well, my skirt was a full skirt, and George says, "Don't worry about it." I said, "I have to worry about it with the catheter. I can't wear my underwear." So I may be the only person you've ever known in church with no underwear, okay? I kind of thought about our life as we're going through this, as we were studying in Sunday school about Joseph, and I'll run through this really quickly. I wished I had started a timeline with all this stuff as I went through, because, you know, God has a beginning and he has an end. And with Joseph's life, we actually see that, and I really wished I could see that in my life, you know, a little better. So, but if you think about Joseph, if he wasn't born the favored child, there would not have been any jealousy between the brothers. If the brothers weren't jealous, then the coat of many colors wouldn't have had been so significant. If the coat wasn't so significant, then the brothers might not have sold him into Egypt. If the brothers had not sold him into Egypt, then Egypt would not have sold him to Potiphar. If Potiphar had not brought Joseph, his wife, would not have accused him of rape. If Joseph was not accused of rape, he would not have been sent to prison. If he had not been sent to prison, he would not have interpreted the baker or the butler's dreams. If he had not interpreted their dreams, then he would not have interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh. If Joseph had not interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, Joseph would not have become second in command. If he had not been second in command, he would not have wisely prepared for the famine. Now, here's where it changes. If he had not planned wisely for the famine, all his family would have died. Okay? Now, if the family would have died, the Messiah could not have come from a dead family. If the family were dead, Jesus would not have came at all. If Jesus had not come, we would all be dead with no hope. So it was all a part of God's plan. So what I'm going through is all a part of God's plan. Some of the blessings that George and I have had was in about 2010 or so, construction had fallen. You could hire anybody for $10 an hour to do anything. And, of course, that was his business. And so I decided I would go to work for a little while to help us out, and I started at Walmart. I had been at church camp the week before, and one of the ladies that was the assistant manager's wife that I didn't realize had worked with me, and she was kind of a heavy woman. She worked 3 days. I worked 7. Keep that in mind. And after her third day, I thought I was going to have to pick her up to get her to her car. She was totally exhausted from working in the kitchen. And so when I went to apply at Walmart and she found out, she told her husband, she said, "Don't even interview her, just hire her. You won't be sorry." So that's how I got my job at Walmart. Then when you first start at Walmart back then, you did not get hired on a full-time position. You was almost always part-time, and you had to work up until you could get a full-time position. In 2012, I was lucky enough to get a full-time position. Well, what that meant for us is we now had medical insurance. So God already knew. And then in 2014, of course, I was diagnosed with cancer. We had decided that, George said, I've never had a decent car in my entire life. We've always just had a car, drove it till it fell apart, bought another car. So he said, I'd like to have a decent car. So we wound up with the little pedal jumper we have out here, and you can laugh at it. It's fine. It runs. It does well. But anyway, we got that car with 134 miles on it. It was a year old, and we got all the I lost my train of thought. All of the things that come with a new car, we still got all of those. And so then, guess what? In 2020, my doctor says, I don't want to treat you anymore. I think I've done all I can do. You need to go to somebody else. So we had to start driving back and forth to Columbia. So now God's provided us a car that we knew we could make it back and forth in. Our church family, we can't even say enough about the prayers and the things here at church that we've been through and been blessed by and whatnot. My sister has been a blessing. I've had 28 surgeries. She's been at 26 of them. I think she was at every one of my chemos except for maybe one. And she stood beside us and helped us and talked to George through things while I was taking treatments and things. And so, You just can't outdo that kind of love. Um, George and I, our relationship has changed. We've always had a good marriage. We have a blended family, so it ain't always fun. But overall, we've had a good marriage. But I think our bond has strengthened. And, George was listening to a sermon one day about the book of James, and he said, I really think we need to read that, because we were pretty low and emotionally, we had just had it. And so for about a solid month, I think it was, we read the whole book of James every day for almost a month. And that helped create our faith just a little bit more, and God really lifted us up for doing that and got us through that. After my hysterectomy, they done, and then God blessed us because they found the cancer in my stomach. If I had not had the hysterectomy, they would not have found that. And it was hidden enough that in the CT scans it would have been hard for them to have found it. And so we can look at that as a blessing. After my hysterectomy, we was very, very lucky and fortunate that we found some insurance, and so I was able to quit Walmart. George is 9 years older than me, and I didn't want to miss out on all them years that we would have, so we just decided that we'd live on less, and we would do that. Now, everyone has a cure for cancer. How many in here's had cancer? I know both of you have. Everybody has a cure. They tell you all kinds of things to do. You need to be alkaline, 9.5. You need to have no sugar. You need to do keto. You need to go on herbs. You need to do vitamins. You need to do Ivomec. I've heard it all. And to be honest, you get tired of hearing it, because that's why you pay a doctor is to tell you what you do and don't need to do. But, I appreciate people wanting to help me, but at the time it frustrated me, to be real honest. So after my hysterectomy, I didn't feel good. I got up one night, I sat in my chair, I got my phone. Guess what was on my phone? No sugar and keto. No sugar and keto. I could not flip a page, I kid you not, that didn't have cancer. Sugar is cancer. Sugar and cancer, and to go on keto. And I got mad, and I was praying, and I said, Lord, what do you want from me? And I swear to you, as I stand here, I heard an audible voice that said, Connie, just do it. Do you know all that keto stuff went off my phone? I am not joking. This was a God thing. So we got up the next morning, and we decided that's what I would do. We'd go completely off the sugar. We'd try to do the starches, and try to stay off that stuff. 3 months later, I did have to have surgery, but there was not one bit of cancer in any cell they found. We went another 3 months, and the same thing. So I went 6 months total without any cancer at all that they could find. Let's see. And then life happened. I wound up with a 3-year-old, and then we wound up with her mother. Stress can really do things to you, people, I'm telling you. It can tear you up. And we began to not eat the same, and I still do not do the sugar, but I do once in a while grab a carb. But it's hard to cook for a bunch of people, and my granddaughter's a very picky eater, and so anyway, the next time I went back, my cancer was back. And then my neighbor burned out, and she moved in with us for a little while, and then now she comes down almost every night and eats supper with us, so a lot of extra added stress we had. As of right now, I have a place on my bladder that they said it's a thickening, and that thickening has grown, and then the place that was in my stomach that they took out, they said that it is growing. They know it's cancer, but because of insurance and protocol, they tried to do a biopsy, but radiology said where it's at and the size of it that they would not touch it. So we talked to our doctor, and what our doctor told us is that they want it to get big enough. And he said, I'm not real sure, this was my urologist, he said, I'm not real sure why. You take something the size of a pinhead and then you let it get up 3 inches big. It just doesn't make sense to him. So what he wants me to do at this point is to go back to Columbia and get another, because I'm in the Cox system and all these doctors have made these decisions, now they won't change their minds. So he said if I go outside the system and someone else comes up with something from a higher up education and whatnot, then we might be able to do something different. So I guess we're going to be trying to make and go back to Columbia for that. Just a quick rundown of things you don't do. The week that I found out I had cancer, I walked in the back door, and the first person that met me said to me, "You do know the little Labby boy died last night?" My heart just broke. I was hurting so bad. So be careful what you say to people when that happens, because it just tears you up inside. You know, a lot of times cancer patients just need to talk. They just need to tell you their story. So be available to them. If you've got a friend going through this, be available to them. A lot of my friends are afraid to talk to me now, so they just kind of ignore me because they don't know how to relate to me. And they're afraid they're going to say something to offend me, and maybe I'm different than other people, but I just soon talk about it and get it out, you know, as I would to do that. So maybe other people are different, but for me, that's kind of hurtful. Don't be afraid to ask them questions. You know, they go through a lot, and sometimes they do need just to talk to people. If you've got a friend that you take out and go to coffee with every Friday, regardless, call them and say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you today. You know, do you feel, can I bring you a 7-Up, or do you feel like going out to coffee?" Or, you know, but keep that contact going. Prayer is a wonderful thing, and you can't even imagine how much George and I appreciate that. But, you know, don't just pray for them. Pray with them. You know, make them feel that love that they need, because they're needing all the support they can get at that time. And I think one of the main things is don't leave them out. You know, if they're willing to work and they're willing to do things, don't push them out of that. Let them make the decision whether they feel like that or not, and let them do that. Philippians 4, 6, and 7 says, "Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds everything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Jesus Christ." Do you have anything you want to say? Okay. I'm going to have Earl play a song. This is my life right now. Every time I hear this song, I get excited, because this song just kind of says it all for me. And so,
When you're up against a wall and your mountain seems so tall, and you realize life's not always fair, you can run away and hide, let the old man decide, or you can change your circumstances with a prayer. When everything falls apart, praise His name. When you have a broken heart, raise your hands and say, "Lord, you're all I need. You're everything to me, and you'll take the pain away." When it seems you're all alone, praise His name. When you feel you can't go on, just raise your hands and say, "Greater is He that is within me," and you can praise the hurt away. If you'll just praise His name. everything falls apart. Praise His name when you have a broken heart. Raise your hands and say, Lord, you're all I need. You're everything to me, and you'll take the pain away. When it seems you're all alone, praise His name. Praise His name. When you feel you can't go on, praise His just name. Raise your hands and say, greater is He that is within me, and you can praise the hurt away. For greater is He that is within me, and you can praise the hurt away. If you'll just praise His name, just praise His name. Praise His name.
So I want to encourage each one of you to turn your